This is Scott Manley from Iris Divine, and you're listening to the Brutally Delicious Podcast.
Yeah, that's what happened.
Yeah, we got stuff in the.
We have standards here, and you do not meet them.
Anyway, thanks for joining us. That's my partners, Rena and Chris.
Hello.
Hello there.
Hello.
Where are you
How are
located?
you guys doing today?
Good.
Great.
I'm located in Washington, D.C.
Oh, so it's Chris.
You're in. I was reading it about that you're in Centerville.
So I think like most of the band members like live out towards that direction. Like I'm the one lone person who actually lives inside the district.
Oh wow. I'm in Sterling.
Okay, so this is actually our practice space I'm sitting in right now. This is my practice space. I mean my basement. But needless to say, we've adorned the walls with many a band paraphernalia and whatnot.
That's awesome.
And I'm not too far.
Was it
from
hard
down
to get a place in DC that you could rehearse in?
Okay, very good. Was it too hard to what?
To like build a rehearsal space in your basement in DC without pissing everyone off around you?
You know, my neighbors are pretty cool, but I put some work and effort into, kind of insulating some stuff and making sure, I kind of contain it as best as possible, but it is definitely not perfect.
Yeah. I was just wondering, I was like, because DC is pretty, it's like, everyone's like on top of each other, basically.
Exactly. Exactly. No, my neighbors are super cool about it. So.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Bruce.
You want me to jump in or you got it?
No, I got it. So I was actually just listening to Sapphire before I came on, and 30 seconds in, I clicked like, and I was just like, holy fuck, this band is like, I didn't really know what it reminded me of. And then I guess the good thing is it didn't remind me of anything, but it gave me that feeling that it reminded me of something. Does that make any sense?
It does.
That's a nice way to put it.
Yeah, it does. I feel like, when Naveed and I had a chance to talk over the song, I remember him talking about some of the guitar stuff. He's like, I'm actually kind of trying to do something that's kind of very Dinosaur Jr. like in this part, especially like in the verses. So like, even though, we kind of, sort of kind of pride ourselves on being like a prog metal band, we definitely have a wide range of influences that come into this. And actually, it's funny. Some of the things outside of the usual spectrum of prog metal bands, like we love like Dream Theater, we love Rush, we love like Haken, we love this whole spectrum of bands. But like a lot of the things we actually also came together on were things that are not, in that sort of arena. So like bands like Helmet and bands like Quicksand and Snapcase, like those 90s kind of like, hardcore sort of metal bands, what I mean? That like we kind of all gravitated towards, that sort of 90s era Anthrax, and even like some more alternative influences like He's Really an Alice in Chains, but like Dinosaur Jr. and stuff like that. So it's definitely found its way into, what we're trying to do.
I absolutely love that because I'm a huge metalhead, but I also love Dinosaur Jr.
Sure.
Like how can you not?
Absolutely. Yeah.
I don't know that I know anything about them.
Are you fucking kidding me?
I mean, I know the name, but I don't think I've heard them.
Like, I'm just... I was just sitting here with my poker face, like I'm not gonna like let them know that I have no fucking idea.
Okay.
Apparently, I'm supposed to know.
Before we go any further, I just want to know: were you guys alive in like 1990 to about 1995? Were you alive during that period?
So I'm gonna tell you, may not be a popular opinion, but that was a pretty shitty time period for me in heavy music. I think like after 91, when Nevermind came out, I kind of tuned out to the whole 90s metal scene until maybe like Testament started, for me, bringing it back in like the late 90s, early 2000s.
Okay.
There's some gems in there though. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was actually into Wu-Tang Clan and the Grave Diggers at that point. So
nice.
All right.
So dark secrets from Rena's past.
To be fair, I'm an 80s metalhead. I grew up in the hair metal scene, and that's always had. So when Nevermind came out, that was like, Kurt Cobain was the Antichrist and just killed all that was good.
I'm not a big Nirvana fan too, but I feel like the 90s have there are some gems in there. And when you kind of discover them, you're like, oh, that's some pretty great stuff going on. So like, I love like that first Anthrax record with John Bush, like I think is a solid record from top to bottom. And I think that, like, like we were talking, like Jay Mascis of Dinosaur Jr., like that dude is, first of all, he cranks it really loud, but he just has this way around of like having these really like intense chords, but just very melodic, but at the same time, like super heavy.
Yeah, it's weird. It's a Dinosaur Jr. is like a pop heavy band. Yeah. It's hard to describe until you listen to it.
Yeah. I dig some of those noise bands too, kind of from the 90s. Like I feel like Dinosaur Jr. was in that route, a little bit of, I would say like Sonic Youth, but yeah. Some of that stuff there's definitely some gems in there that we've definitely kind of latched onto.
Nice. So I have a question for you.
So was that video shot in your rehearsals? Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Finish it up.
I was just wondering, was the video shot in your rehearsal space?
No, that was shot in a friend's barn up outside of Baltimore.
Okay.
He had the space and he had been meaning to clean it out anyway, so we gave him a good excuse to clean it out. And his name is Jeremy Farkas. Jeremy's actually the guy who filmed the video.
Okay.
And he's actually been an integral part of the band. He's been very good with kind of like a lot of our social media stuff, and he's kind of been re-engineering our webpage, but he's also the one who shot that video for us and edited it together and everything.
Cool. It takes a team to get a band out there. It really does.
Yeah.
So it's hard to do on your own.
Yes, exactly. So we're really thankful that we have him to kind of like, he's really savvy with a lot of that. So it's great that we have him. He and I have been best friends forever. So it's kind of when I joined the band, sort of like he kind of came in tow eager because he loved Iris Divine as well. So he kind of jumped right into that position right away to try to do what he could to help further the band.
Yeah, it's pretty rare for me to click like within 30 seconds, but I did. I was just like, this is because like I said, it reminded me of something, but I couldn't put my finger on it. It just gave me that feeling that it reminded me of something. Right. It was, I don't even know how to describe it. It's a weird situation.
Well, we have, go ahead. Sorry.
No, how do you find like the metal scene in DC?
It's an interesting scene. I mean, it's small. I mean, DC is not a very big area, but I would even say like kind of the DC and the surrounding areas, the whole DMV, if you will, area. Yeah. It varies. It seems like there's been this really strong sort of progressive current that's kind of existed here. I mean, you've got a lot of great bands. Like you've got like A Sound of Thunder. You've got bands like Schumann. You have Brave, which is a little further south. And there's you also have like oh my gosh, I'm sorry, I'm forgetting the name, but anyway, there's a bunch of different bands from there. I remember there used to be Red Death was one of them, and it's a wide-ranging group of bands. But honestly, I think it's a really underestimated scene in a lot of ways. I think it probably, Baltimore, like up towards that way, it probably gets a little bit more attention. I think in DC area, I know a lot of people who aren't aware of it, but there's a lot of strong bands. No Mas is another one. Darkest Hour, phenomenal band, right?
But you have a lot of history there too, right? Like Bad Brains and stuff like that.
Sure, absolutely. I grew up on that 90s. So again, we were talking about 90s influences, or even some of that stuff from the 80s. So like Minor Threat, Bad Brains, all those bands, as well as like for me, especially like Jawbox, Fugazi, Blue Tip, all those bands that came out of this area. I mean, I think DC's always been a great area for bands in general. It's unfortunate. It's like none of them ever captured like the national consciousness, but maybe that's also a good thing too.
Yeah, we actually interviewed Schumann because I sought them out because I heard Memories of Water, and I was just like, what a fucking track. We have to interview these guys.
That whole record is amazing.
It is.
I don't know if you've spent the time listening to it, but I was just like,
absolutely. Wow. Yeah, they're great writers.
They are. Best record I think yet that they put out.
Yeah.
Rena?
Bruce?
I was going to give it to Rena.
Love that little multi-hop.
Yeah.
But so apparently you guys gathered the money to make your album with Kickstarter. How was that? Was that like a pain in the ass or actually a pleasant experience?
Actually, so it's the first time I had been involved in anything like that. So it went really, really well. I know that they were kind of sweating it a little bit because they've done this before. But it actually went off pretty well. I think there was a little bit of fear that, because it's been a little while since we made a record, who's even thinking about us anymore? And we kind of blasted it out there. And, even like the night before, I know there was conversation about like, should we bring it down even more? I just don't want to upset ourselves, get too disappointed. And surprisingly, we far exceeded our expectations. I think we were looking for 4,000 originally. We got up over 6,000.
Wow.
Oh, that's good. So that paid for quite a bit of time.
It did. It did.
Yeah. So where did you guys?
That's a whole full-time project, though, right?
It is, and that's again, when I was making mention of Jeremy earlier, Jeremy Farkas, he was really instrumental in kind of pushing that along and making sure that it was constantly out there in consciousness, so that it was people were paying attention to it.
Right.
Nice. So where did you guys end up tracking the record then?
We recorded up in Baltimore, outside of Baltimore. Gosh, Tony's gonna hate me for not remembering the name of the studio off the top of my head. Deep End Studios.
Okay.
And Tony Corelli, he did a fantastic job. So he engineered the drums. We went in for 3 days, and I just kind of slogged it out over 3 days, and then he handled all of the mixing and mastering. So Brian and Naveed recorded all their parts separately. Remember, this is still kind of in the midst of the pandemic. This was April of last year when I finally recorded all my tracks, and then they kind of did all their stuff at home and sent it in. He mixed it all, did the mastering and everything. It took a lot of back and forth, just a lot of fine tweaking. He did an excellent job. The drum sounds I was really happy with right off the bat, but just a lot of tweaking and everything like that. And that's where we got to where we are today with the record. But Tony did an awesome job.
How did you feel about working remotely like that?
It was weird. So, I joined the band January of 2020, right? The prior drummer, Chris, who's a great guy, phenomenal player, and he's been really awesome during this process too with helping out with stuff. But he had left, and they went through an audition process. So I joined in January. We had like maybe 5 rehearsals under our belts, and then everything closed up.
Right.
And it was basically I think like a lot of bands, we had to work on everything remotely. But it was just kind of weird because it was like, well, here's my new band, and I won't see them now for another God only knows how long. You know? So for the next 6 months, we didn't see each other face to face, but we kept demoing stuff, sending stuff back and forth. We originally had a list of about 12 songs that we were kind of working through, coming up with ideas for. And ultimately, we narrowed it down to 8 songs. And during that time, it wasn't like 12 off the bat. They had been working on some material. And then Naveed I think when we got into lockdown, just started kind of writing and came up with some other ideas. It's like, I come up with some more stuff. And then we kind of put it to a vote to see what we thought was going to be the best material to put out there. And it was crazy working remotely. And even we did it over FaceTime. I remember Naveed and I would be playing. There was this one song called 13, which the video is going to be coming out for later this week. It's kind of an epic prog rock metal tune. And so we were working it over FaceTime. And I remember there was a delay. So I'd be playing through it, and I would be listening for him. And then on him, it sounded like we were getting off from each other. But for me, we were. So I finally just said, all right, forget it. I'm just going to play this along with a track, a demo track, and we'll play along with that, and I get to the end, and a second later he did the last, and he's like, all right, that's great. That sounds awesome. You know what I mean? So we had to figure our way around stuff like that to just kind of figure out how to do things, but we made it work. We did make it work. We had Naveed and I were get together for a while and do a couple in-session things here just to kind of make sure we had stuff tightened up before we went in the studio, but it was a wild process.
So were you doing that with electronic drums or real drums and a microphone?
It's like I was using real drums, but I had triggers set up on them so I could record it directly into. So I'd set up these drums because I had to do this late at night and stuff like that. So I had mesh drum heads on my actual drums.
Ah, gotcha.
And I had these rolling triggers, and from there I would feed it into a drum brain, and then and then into Logic, the program and everything. I hope that all makes sense to everybody.
100%.
Yeah, so that's how I did everything. I triggered all these cymbals, and stuff like that with these special types of cymbals, so that nothing was super loud, but I could do it at 4 o'clock in the morning if I needed to, or whenever.
Yeah. We're using those. I can't remember the company that makes them. They're they put piezo pickups in the cymbals, and then the cymbals are kind of made in a way that they don't really crash or vibrate.
Not exactly. Here, I'll even show you what I got. Whoops, hold on a second. I was using kind of it's like this.
Oh yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about.
Okay, all right, yeah. It would be something I would attach to it. It's not like a rubber one that has something on the inside. Yeah, that's exactly what I did.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. I built a few kits for people like that. And I was just like, oh, it's cool. That's cool that you're doing that, because a lot of people would have just went the trigger route and never.
I started off with electronic drum set, but it was really old. And by the time I got so far into it, I kind of destroyed all the cymbal pads. And I wanted this to be a much more real experience anyway. So that's when I decided I was going to go all in, because it looked like we were going to be doing this for a while. So that's when I made the choice that I did.
How did you?
And you're set up now to do it all the time anyways, which is cool.
Exactly.
Yeah. How did you get involved with Layered Reality Productions? Because we've done a lot of stuff with Tom, and he's been on the show a few times.
Yeah, Naveed is the one who really established that contact. You know, I didn't really have as much conversation with Tom until later on when it came to like the artwork and of course like doing shipping, receiving of stuff that was coming from overseas here. Tom's been really great. I mean, he's a nice guy to work with. I think it's funny that it'll be midnight here and he's like, you know, he'll be waking up in the morning. So we'll be emailing each other on opposite ends of the day.
Right.
But Naveed, I think, is really who made that contact. And I'm not exactly sure how that all came about, but I'm glad it came about nonetheless. He's been awesome to work with.
Yeah, Tom's a great guy.
Yeah, he is. He is. Funny guy, too.
Yeah. Rena?
I got nothing after all this gear porn. I'm sorry. Like my brain just goes like when that shit goes on. So I don't know. Dude, tell me about your day.
Well, my day so far is I don't know. I've got to go to do some stuff like after this. You know what I mean? For just for some medical clearances and stuff like that. Not for anything that I'm sick for, just for work and stuff like that. I have annual stuff I have to do. But
what's your day job, dude?
I actually work in a hospital operating room.
Oh wow. My God.
I kind of handle like a lot of the technology stuff in the room. I actually manage a group of people, I should say, that does it. But like when they go in and they're doing minimally invasive surgery and they're, you know, using the video camera and you know, and stuff like that.
Laparoscopy.
Exactly. That's what I'm involved in.
Wow.
Thank you for doing that. I can't thank you enough for doing that. Seriously.
It's an interesting line of work. I'll be honest with you. I mean, it's not something everybody else does, but nothing kind of really bothers me anymore either. I remember the first time, and I knew it one day when they had like somebody's intestines like sitting on this stand, and I just looked at it. I was like, that looks like lasagna. Shit, that reminds me.
Love that.
Ask anybody who works in that field, and they'll all tell you they had that point where they just like they're just so like blasé about it. You know, it doesn't matter.
So, was there ever a moment, like a queasy moment, where you lost your lunch, or?
Never lost my lunch, but I had a couple moments that kind of struck me a little weird. One of them was there was just this unfortunately quadriplegic gentleman who had like a lot of really bad issues and like just full parts of skin like eaten away and stuff like that. And it was really bad. And I think the hardest one is like actually when you see children who have a lot of problems.
Yeah.
I've seen that a few times. And sometimes that's just been really hard to look at.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I bet. But you are doing really important work. So on behalf of Chris and everybody else, thank you for doing what you do.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
I gotta say, I've actually seen the intestines when I used to work at a funeral home.
Oh, okay.
Wait, I didn't know
I'm
that.
actually in Finland. Yeah, but this is, and I'll tell you a tiny anecdote of it too, because like this is Finland. We don't have funeral homes as you do in the States, where, you know, there's a mortician there who prepares the body and the bodies actually stay in that place. Here, the bodies are at the pathologist or in the hospital freezer or at the chapel waiting for the burial, but we don't even do open caskets that often. It apparently some people do, but not most people. So I'm working in this funeral office, and this salesman comes by, this door-to-door salesman comes in and says like, yeah, so I sell these air fresheners, so I figured you guys could use these. And I'm like, huh? You know, before I get it, like, you know, he thinks that I have like a pile of corpses in the back room, right, stinking up the place. What the hell? You know, not at all. But yeah, I did. And then I had the opportunity to go watch an autopsy from behind a glass, and of course I was like, yeah, that's metal as fuck. You know?
I don't know if I could do that.
Let me guess. Was the mortician like listening to like Carcass or something like that in the background while they were doing all that?
I wish. I was behind the glass, so I don't know. It could have been like anything. It could have been anything. But I gotta say, like, it didn't really faze me either.
Yeah.
Really? You know? It's
I couldn't do it.
There's just sort of a separation you kind of develop from it. You're just like, it's just like, this is work. You know what I mean? In a weird way, you're just like, you're kind of just sort of removed from it. You know,
I've heard of that from a lot of my friends that work in healthcare.
Yeah.
And they have a really sick sense of humor about it too. Like,
that's true.
Yeah.
It's pretty, like, I'd be hanging out with them. I'd be like, did you just say that? Oh my God. That's so dark. And they're all just like, laughing away.
It was a part of my job to organize, or at least sometimes I would be in contact with the people who go get the body. If somebody dies at home or whatever, like, you know, you need to transport the body out of there. And yeah, those guys, I can't even repeat the jokes because it would be offensive. And I don't want anybody listening to this have any sort of thoughts about their parents or loved ones from those comments. But I think you need that humor to
deal.
Deal with that stuff.
You do. You do. I think one of the awesome moments that I ever had in the OR is I walked into a room and they were just blasting like Black Flag, like through the speaker and everything. And I was like, all right, this is, and I stuck around because it was like Black Flag, Motorhead. I think like in Rush, they played like, it was like a track from each, you know what I mean? Like Tommy Sawyer played. I was like, damn, I'm not even going to leave this room for a while. This is a great soundtrack.
That's awesome.
It is.
You know what? Next time I have surgery, I'm telling the doctor, hey, listen, I know that I'm going to be under, but you got to blast some metal.
Yeah. Most of the time they put on like dance music and stuff like that. And it's just like, ugh. Or I have one surgeon who puts on country all the time. And I'm just,
God. See, I wouldn't wake up from that surgery.
Yeah, I would.
It would kill me. That would kill me.
Nice.
Fuck. Like, why do I want to hear a song about like going to the river and going fishing and putting on my blue jeans in the back of my truck? You know, like I don't need any of that in my life.
Exactly.
No, you need the songs where your shitty husband is cheating on you and you're just polishing up the barrel of your gun to get rid of the fucker. You know, I think that'll get you into the fighting mood that you need to recover from that surgery and truly wake up enough to give in to that. You know.
If I hear another fucking country song about kissing a girl under the bleachers, or going down to the creek and going fishing, or jumping in my pickup truck, I'm gonna fucking
there
puke.
you go.
No.
Right.
Sorry.
No, I agree. I'm right there with you.
Bro country can suck. Never mind.
Yeah.
So, okay. Before we go, Washington, D.C., should it be a state or not?
Absolutely. 100%.
Thank you. 1,000,000%.
It's crazy that Wyoming and Vermont have smaller populations than the District of Columbia does. Like, that's the crazy thing. And they have 2 senators each. You know, like California has 10% of the population. They have 2 senators. So why does the District of Columbia, which has a greater population than both of those states, not have any representation? That's ridiculous.
You know what? When I first moved here 5 years ago, I went into D.C., and I love how on City Hall they have the debt clock, but it's how much taxes they've paid without representation, and it's always just counting up nonstop.
For those of you who don't love the area from DC, like we have our license plates, and they all say, you know, Washington D.C. taxation without representation.
I love that.
Have a nice big vis to the federal government.
Was it Marion Barry that did that?
I don't remember. I wouldn't be surprised. I would not be surprised in the least if that was the case.
One thing I'll say, for the people that don't know Marion Barry, he was crazy. Yeah. But he was also nicknamed Mayor for Life, and they just put a statue up of him.
They did.
and he was caught by the FBI doing crack in a hotel room.
I was going to say, I think he was a crackhead, right?
Wasn't that okay, I'm not gonna say anything. I'm not an American, but like I think I remember that dude. Like he was caught on those crazy videos, like really, really pigging out. Yes. You know, like
no, that was the Canadian guy, Rob Ford.
Oh, that's right. I'm kidding.
And Marion Barry was asked about the Canadian guy, and he said, "Oh, he's got nothing on me. That guy sucks. He's like, he never got busted by the FBI." You know.
Wasn't it Marion Barry who said the famous line like "bitch set me up" or something like that? I'm not sure if he was the one caught on tape saying that.
Nice.
Yeah.
Thank you, my friend.
Thank you, guys.
And keep us appraised of when the new videos come out so we can share it around.
We are supposed to have a new video come out this week. I believe it's supposed to air on Friday. It's 4/13, so that's our big upcoming thing.
And also
send us a message to let us know so we can.
Yeah. Also, any shows in the local area, because I'm in Richmond. I don't mind driving up to catch you guys. So.
Okay. Yeah, we'll definitely. So right now, I know we have some stuff that's going to be. We're scheduling for out of town right now, but I don't know if we're hitting Richmond. We might be hitting north. We might be hitting around Raleigh-Durham area. I don't know how far that is for you.
Well, either way, keep us posted. Thanks for taking the time.
I'll keep you guys abreast. We'll do. Thank you, guys.
Cheers.
All right. Cheers.
Thanks.
Take care.
It was really nice meeting you.
Likewise.
Yeah. Bye.